All right, it's 7:12. Welcome into Winging It Wednesday. Gosh, I feel like this is, it almost feels like brand new to me because I was gone. Remember, we went on the trip, and then I was back for a couple weeks, and then last week was the first day of school, so I wasn't with you guys. So I'm here, and then Stafford didn't show up. So, no, he's going to be here in a few minutes. He's doing some back-to-school stuff, too.
Gotcha.
So I want to give you guys a chance of all the topics that I sent that I wanted to talk about. Which one do we not care about his opinion on? Because that's which one we'll cover right now. No.
That's so wrong.
I think he's on his way.
Yeah, he's on his way. Okay, so the sheriff sales tax, big change last week where we got a little bit of change in the ballot language, what the proposal is, and then the question then becomes, where does Lafayette, as far as city police, fit into all this? Because remember when it was initially rolled out, it was going to be half and half for the new sales tax revenue. Warren, I never thought I would ever decide on a tattoo that I wanted to get, but I have decided it's going to go right here under my perfectly formed pec. It's going to say, what part of Lafayette is not in Lafayette Parish? Show me the inch. Because you say it over and over and over and over again.
Well, that's true. And somebody's going to point it out one of these days, and I'm still waiting for that to happen. You know, I watched a thing this morning on YouTube about Pluto. You know, Pluto, is it a planet? Is it not a planet? There's another planet where there's not a planet.
Everybody knows it's a dog.
Is it in this solar system or is it not in this solar system? You know, so anyway, that I have no earthly idea what they're going to do or where the money's going or anything else. All I know is that we got money problems here, and how it gets allocated is anybody's guess. And I think the deconsolidation, reconsolidation, no consolidation issue is not going to solve one single problem because it does not solve the money problem. And the sheriff's deal, sheriff's tax, you know, how much money do they need? What do they need it for? Let's have some transparency and put it out there. You know, it's just like the library tax when it came up. The biggest deal was everybody says, well, you don't need the money. And they kept saying, we can use the money, you know. So they never did really come out and say, this is what we need the money for. This is what we're going to do. And I think that's what the citizens in general are crying for, is some transparency. It's just like, show us the books.
I'll tell you.
Show us what you're going to do.
It's sort of like the free cell phone tents that you see somewhere when you're driving around. I don't need a free cell phone because I can fully afford to pay for mine, but
especially when the company's paying for it.
I could use one. I could use one. You know, so there's the difference. Anyway.
Hey, look, as far as free cell phones, I heard yesterday.
How does that work, by the way? Does anyone know how that program works?
Somebody said that you'll never see a drug dealer with one of those free cell phones because they think every one of them are tracked.
Probably.
They probably
are.
And that is a huge market.
Well, yes.
The drug dealers.
Burner phones.
Yes. Mm-hmm. All right.
Burner phones.
Carol, from your burner phone to mine.
I learned that from Homicide and The Wire.
Yes. All right. So,
burner phones.
So it was sort of weird when we talked about this and we interviewed the sheriff last week, and then we started getting some questions later on in the day to say, hey, Rob and Bernie, great interview, but go look at that ballot language closer than ever because there are some weird things with it. Carol, you know this kind of stuff inside and out. Can you make a deal on the back end after something is voted on and with there really being no guarantee? It sort of feels like the school board tax again.
Exactly. And if you want to get all the details, listen to the Ross Report on August 23rd. I'm lining up an interview with the sheriff right now. But I'll tell you from what has happened so far, it has been, I think the sheriff has admitted this. He could have handled this better. And unfortunately, I don't think it's totally his fault the way it all came down. The fact that he was partnered with the Police Association of Lafayette. Those folks, I spoke to Scott Rummel and David Stanley, president and vice president respectively, and their feeling was they wanted to start something along in terms of pay for police officers because Lafayette is falling behind, and that's well known that Lafayette is falling behind, especially in terms of starting salaries. There are area police departments that are offering higher starting salaries, and that's hurting the retention, the recruitment and retention. And so that's what their idea was. Then they never could get, and they told me this directly, I'm not making this up, they never could get the mayor or the police chief to go on the line about the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And so this thing kept roiling through, and the sheriff decided, well, he's going to take the LPD out. But the problem is this is going to be collected parish-wide, and yes, Warren, you're absolutely correct. All of those municipalities that have their own police department are inside the parish, and that's where the majority of sales taxes are being collected, which is hence the reason for the sheriff to go parish-wide instead of just collecting it in the unincorporated area, which has virtually no tax base.
No tax base. That's why we're in the situation
so
we're in.
He's saying he's given us a tax break. Well, he's given the people in the unincorporated area a tax break, but the rest of us are going to pay an additional half-cent.
So do we ever kind of come to a head on this? It's weird because it's not like it's playing out publicly. It's sort of one-sided. But it seems like the sheriff and the police chief, Warren, are not really playing on the same team at this point.
Oh, the chief. If you saw that comment by the chief, he was frosted. I mean, he was not happy.
So you're saying that there's no collusion?
Well, in that case, I don't think so.
No.
I don't think Russia's involved either, just for the record.
But I mean,
the stenographer.
They never were going to get half of it, which was another, unfair part because the majority of the tax will be collected in Lafayette.
All right.
So they were all going to get 1/3, which was $14 million. He was going to get the other $24 million because basically that's what 3/4 would produce. Now it's down to a half-cent. And he's going to keep it all.
All right. On the topic of money, the budget conversation has started at Lafayette Consolidated Government, and Councilmember Bruce Conk has a proposal that would hurt the budget of the Marshal's office. What does that mean? What does it mean for us? And what does it mean for the Marshal? Now that coming up on Winging It Wednesday. All right, 7:23 now. Our fourth panelist has joined us.
Okay.
Fresh from the car line.
Training.
Well, no. We know, it's just we're going to start selling subscriptions to the commercial.
Oh my
breaks.
gosh, yes.
I want my $1.09. Okay.
Listen, if you're gonna sell that, I demand that I get paid
No,
now.
I want my $2 though.
We don't want the ditto cam, and we would have had to bleep you every 2 seconds.
Yesterday was a rough day.
All I'm saying, Stafford, is don't perform too well right here because Carol's going to say, "What are you doing at 2 every day?" Have an extra mic. You want to come around? All right. I want to talk about the budget discussion that has started, and of course the headline. Which let me just be transparent and say, usually when these budget discussions start, especially this early on, they're pretty boring because they deal with low-level things usually and getting things ready. Then usually a little bit later on in the process is when you start to have some controversy or people mad or a bunch of people showing up to a meeting to save something they like. Well, right out the gate, the Marshal's office and a proposed cut to their funding to be diverted to Lafayette Police, proposed by Councilmember Bruce Conk. Now, of course, the Marshal's office is not too happy about that, as I don't think any department would be, but there have been questions about even the need for a Marshal's office. So, Carol, let you take the first stab at this.
You were listening yesterday afternoon. That's what I've been questioning forever and ever. This is like a vestigial organ, like an appendix. It can cause a lot of inflammation, but it's not really necessary. And that's what we're seeing right now. That exchange between Bruce Conk and Brian Pope was kind of disturbing in a way because there was no real conversation going on. They were just throwing accusations at each other. And I fully understand why Bruce Conk wants to strip that amount out of the funding because we continually see the Marshal. I don't know that has changed, that he is still supplementing his salary with civil fees and garnishments that are supposed to be going toward running the office, not being pocketed personally by him. And we still see that going on. As far as I know, there's been an audit to Attorney General's opinions, and as far as I know, nothing has changed. When I spoke to the Attorney General, Jeff Landry, about it, he cannot overstep the authority of the local district attorney. So if they don't come after him there, now look, he's been winning in court. You got to admit, I mean, he's been delaying all of this stuff for forever. The legal fees are ticking. I mean, they keep going up and up. And yesterday he got another win in court when the appeals court said, well, the district judge didn't have the right to revoke your probation, and there's a question about whether that was legal in the first place.
And the community service, too.
Yeah, and the community service. So there you go. And here we are. He is the highest paid salaried elected official in the parish. He's making almost $200,000, and I will question whether we need that. I mean, Bruce Conk made a very good point that the city police needs the money, and could not we have a division within the city police to handle these kinds of things at civil court, and have the civil fees and garnishments go into the operation of the police department? Look, I have friends who work as city marshals, For all I know, it's a very well run operation. But the question is, we're still spending all this money, and I question the need for a separate city marshal.
All right, Stafford.
I'd like to thank the council for going from semi-dull in the past year to now you want to show up just to watch what's going to happen. I mean, between Kenny or Terrio and Williams going back and forth, or Kenneth Boudreaux and William Terrio going back and forth, and now Brian Pope trying to go up against Bruce Conk. Bruce is a master at the rules of what has to happen there. And if you watch the exchange, I thought it was phenomenal. Pope goes up there and says, you're the police and fireman liaison for the city of Lafayette. To which Bruce replies, you're not the police. You're the marshal's office. And he goes, well, I have you down as our contact. And he goes, have you ever requested to be added as an agenda item to a council meeting? And he said no. This is, I think Brian is playing checkers while everybody else is playing chess. And it's evident by the fact that he thought it was okay to call a press conference and use his position to try to sway an election for one of his friends. So I think that Pope shouldn't be in office. I agree with Carol that I don't understand the point of the marshal's office. I think that the city police or the sheriff could do it just as good, if not better. I think that the fact that just because Nikki Picard supplemented his income as well doesn't mean that that Brian Pope should be able to do it as well. Much less should we be left with the bill for his legal expenses. So my question is for Warren.
Oh, wow.
Because I bring this up all the time. I still haven't seen anything from the local Republican executive committee to say, hey, we don't agree with what he's doing either, because it's blatantly obvious to everybody, apparently except the committee, that Brian Pope shouldn't be where he is.
All right, Warren, want to respond?
Yeah, and getting back to the parish executive committee, that there is no grounds there to do what you want to do. He's not a convicted felon. He's not changed parties. And
he was elected.
And he's not moved out of the district, which the district is. I think he ran from a district. But anyway, that's the three reasons that they can be removed from the committee. And I'm one of these kind that I don't believe that the committee need to be sitting there targeting different individuals, and they've done that before. They had these rules set up where if you violated a rule, and they could throw you off the committee, and it was always done so that some little clique could sit there or some basic tyrant could sit there and run the whole thing. And I'm just not for that. Somebody gets elected, let them serve. But getting back to the marshal's office and all that stuff, I have said this over and over. First of all, I think that thing about supplementing your salary with or pocketing the fees and all that comes in, most every other state would call that theft. But in Louisiana, it's called a right. And that I understand that basically the same thing goes on with district attorneys and on and on and on. Is that there's so many of those things where they're allowed to keep money, and for the life of me, I can't see how anybody can say that is right. It may be legal, but I just don't see how you can say that it is right. And especially when you come down and say now that's the highest paid elected official in the parish, and that then you get the questions, do you really need the marshal's office?
All right, Carol, wrap this up.
All right, real quick. He had every right to have that press conference. And in fact, his attorneys are arguing that was the underpinning was not there, that he had a First Amendment right to say what he said. The problem was the independent made a public records request, which he defied. That's what got the ball rolling. If he had honored their request, and if there was something illegal in there, he would have paid a minor ethics fine. Maybe he would have paid a minor ethics fine, because when you look at Greg Goshasan's now 10 years later, he still hasn't paid the $1.5 million.
Hasn't paid a major fine.
He hasn't paid anything. So there's a question there. He just used poor judgment in not responding to their public records request. That's the underpinning. He had every right to have the press conference.
And then you have so many eyes. You have so many more eyes on what you're doing. I have long thought that too. Just to respond. Just respond.
Well, they're required by law to actually respond within 72 hours. Now, they don't have to give you the information, but they do have to acknowledge that they got the request and then within a certain reasonable period of time provide the information
I think
requested.
it's 72 hours.
It's 72
right?
hours that they have to respond and let you know they got your request.
Here's your
Even if it
request.
doesn't
Then
come
the
back.
information that I'm not sure of. They have to supply it in a reasonable amount of time.
Stafford.
And last little thing about that, if you missed the work that the Independent was doing, because I felt that they did good work there, the Current is continuing that tradition. Christian Mader is making a strong effort to go out there and continue to be an alternative press in town. So if you get a chance to check out the Current, they're the ones that broke the story about LUS. I would strongly suggest you check them out.
Well, Bernie and I were feeding polar bears, so
Yeah, and why couldn't he have why couldn't he have just answered that request with about a 90% redacted document?
Yeah,
or
like
90
everybody else does.
pages, 90 pages where nothing would have ever been found.
Like the document I got back from the city about the
checkers
salaries
versus chess.
for the council members. Remember I showed you?
Yeah, I know.
redacted all over the place. Now I understand they want to redact Social Security numbers and all, but this thing looks something from the DOJ.
All right, 7:32 now. We're going to talk about the defense spending and this big push that Senator John McCain has been a part of. What does it mean? We're going to break it all down as we go national with the conversation next.
All right, a couple of traffic crashes. Johnston at Mount Vernon this morning. Johnston at Mount Vernon. Have a little fender bender there. Ambassador at Bertrand. That's Ambassador right at Bertrand. And a stalled vehicle on Ridge Road between Stone Ridge and South Richfield. Again, that's a stalled vehicle on Ridge between Stone Ridge and South Richfield. So you don't have to have that big clunky CPAP machine anymore. There is an alternative. Louisiana Sleep Solutions. Call 234-3551 or go to louisianasleepsolutions.com for more info.
All right, so if the good folks over at Janny King are listening right now, bring your mop buckets over here because Stafford and I apparently just need to have like a 7:30 in the morning drink to talk about our kid going to kindergarten. So anyway, we're surviving though. We're surviving.
It's a good thing I'm wearing a cotton shirt because this is a lot of tears.
All we have to do is just, you know what? It's like I told Bernie yesterday. The part that makes me the most sad about kindergarten is they're not teaching them to learn anything. They're teaching them how to overthrow us. They're teaching them how to unpack their own backpack, look in their own folder.
Warren is killing himself laughing. How many children do you have, young man?
They don't need us.
The two liberals, the two guys ruining the show, have too much in common.
That's right.
Yes, got to break them up.
So, do you have a boy and a girl?
A man and a woman.
Do you? Yeah. Well, that's true. That's true. Do you remember the first day
like
of kindergarten or first grade, or did you cry?
No.
Okay.
You
just
said
checking.
Get
out of this truck.
Highlanders don't have tears.
All right, I want to talk about this defense spending bill. At this point, so what are we now coming up? We're a couple months away from the 2-year mark from the 2016 election. It's almost like you could play out a public appearance of the president or play out some sort of decision, and you could almost write what is each network going to say and how are the analysts going to see this. Of course, there are going to be anti-Trump analysts that see things a certain way no matter what. Then there are going to be the ones that are supporters who say it's just how he is. However, it seemed pretty mixed, especially with Republicans, about John McCain's involvement with this defense spending bill that was signed. They even put his name in the title, but his name wasn't mentioned at the actual signing. Warren, does this mean anything? Is this just how Trump operates? You know, you kind of crossed him with the health care bill. Is it just kind of like, you dead to me? Is that what it is?
No, I think what it is more than anything else is who in the hell needs to mention his name to begin with? And I said, a while back, I just soon never mention that name here on the air because to me he is just completely and totally irrelevant. He stabbed everybody in the back he's ever come in contact with, so, it's a good thing he didn't mention his name.
You don't have a shirt. You don't have a McCain shirt, I guess.
No, and I actually voted for him one time.
Mm-hmm. All right, Carol, your thoughts?
Well, when was the last time you ever heard anybody give the full name of a bill? I mean, I don't remember ever hearing. I mean, have you seen some of the names of those bills? They don't give the full names of these bills, and he's talking about defense appropriation. I mean, even if it was a slight or whatever, as Warren said, you couldn't blame him after look at that. Okay, so maybe this was a symbolic thumbs down after the thumbs down that McCain did on the skinny repeal. It was a modest repeal of certain parts of Obamacare. And it wasn't that he did it because Lisa Murkowski voted no, and so did Susan Collins. It was the way he did it, strutting around on the floor of the Senate, and then he struts around and he looks up at the media and he goes like that in a dramatic thumbs down gesture. You could maybe excuse a little bit of resentment by Trump. But the fact is, really, I've never heard the full name of a bill given out when the actual appropriation or the announcement of it was done, that it had already passed. So I don't know what it would have added to the conversation. He was making a speech to the military.
It was generically. Except for Obamacare, like everybody said Obamacare, right?
Yeah,
or
but that was
Affordable
Care,
Care
Affordable Care, and
right.
That wasn't even the name exactly.
It's funny because I feel like when we see these ceremonies, sometimes if it's, I don't know, a certain senator who's pushed for something, maybe it's a handicap accessibility requirement. They might have the person next to them.
But, he's ill and he's back in Arizona, so you know what you're going to do.
Stafford, your thoughts on the situation? So just
I don't think it's that big a deal that he didn't mention it, but I think to take a step back, if you look at McCain's record of service, you would think in a different political atmosphere he might get mentioned. I don't think it's that big a deal that he didn't. I think McCain probably feels a little bit better that his name wasn't mentioned. McCain served as the chaplain while he was locked up, while he was being tortured by the enemy, and then came back and tried to put a good life together. I think I hold him and Bob Dole in the same regard as two people who've been military heroes who've given their whole lives to this country. So I wish McCain the best. I think that his legacy will be one that'll last a long time, especially for standing up against somebody who dodged the draft, right? So I wish him the best. I hope that his time in Arizona is fruitful. I doubt he's hearing this, but I hope that he knows that
he's actually probably a fan.
Carol
loves Carol. I hear
there's a lot of people who want him to have a comfortable end of life. So
all right.
And I do agree with one thing. He did stand up to somebody, the president who dodged the draft, and that was he was often at odds with George W. Bush.
Okay, well, thanks for that little footnote there, Mr. Warren Goddell. 7:44. Going to take a quick break. We're going to come back, talk about everyone's favorite reality star turned White House official, and we're not talking about Trump.
I'm glad we saved time for this one.
Omarosa. We're going to talk about her next. Are you surprised? And would you even hire her to pick up your kids from Carline? These are questions Bernie and I want to know your answers to next on Winging It Wednesday.
All right.
7:48 now. My favorite hour of the entire week, the 7 o'clock hour on Wednesdays. It's like that commercial where someone would jump out from the bushes and scare you, and then you say, "Oh, your heart's all right." That's what this hour is for me, because my blood pressure ticks up just a little bit, and then, hey, after Winging It Wednesday on Wednesdays, the weekend is here, basically. Mm-hmm. It's August 15th, and we want to wrap up by talking about Omarosa. Now, I feel like I could have seen this whole situation coming from 10 miles away when I even heard Omarosa's name mentioned in any coverage of a White House staff, of anyone who's going to work there, because she was a 3-time contestant, if I'm not mistaken, on The Apprentice. We knew she was going to write a book. Stafford, it seems like the conversation has moved further away from what she saw and what she has to actually say to, wait a second, someone was allowed to bring a cell phone into the Situation Room and record it there. So, I don't know, there's questions all over the place. First of all, a yes or no question, would you hire her to pick up your kids from school?
No, but just because I don't need somebody to pick up my kids from school.
Oh, okay, well, there you go. Your thoughts?
I have trouble answering hypotheticals.
Okay, well.
Look, so
no fun.
Here's the hardest part of the whole.
Boo, hiss.
Boo.
Here's the hardest part of the whole Omarosa thing is that they're all liars, right? Every single one of them's a liar, right? Omarosa is no different than any of them, and she's still the villain, right? Jake Tapper pointed it out, I think, best yesterday when he brought up the fact that this has been so hard. If it had been ignored, and this would have gone away for the most part. But she made recordings. She made recordings in the Situation Room. That is not supposed to be okay. And so she would say something, the White House would deny it, and she'd drop a recording. She'd say something, the White House would deny it, she'd drop a recording. And so what she's done is she's brought stuff out. They've had a chance to go, hey, she's lying about this, and then just slaps back with actual evidence. So, look, I don't like Omarosa. I think that she just the funny thing to me is the Trump thing coming back and going, she's a dog, she's this, or having the recordings of Trump's assistants talking about the existence of a tape where Trump drops the N-bomb, right? I don't think any of that's really relevant to the base, and the reason is because we've seen Trump mock disabled people. We've seen him be racist towards Mexico. Like, we know that he's a racist. Why does the existence of him dropping the N-bomb make change anything for anybody? So, like, supposedly Vice has those tapes. All that stuff I really don't care about. I don't think it's going to do anything to the base. I don't think that they care. I think they're still kind of rabid about their support. If you look at where Trump's losing support right now, it's in the things that got him across the finish line for the election. It's in educated women.
Or you talking about the middle ground,
right,
so-called swing vote.
Right. He's losing the swing vote right now. I think Omarosa, if you look at the front page of a news website right now, she's covering about a third of it. I think that's going to get less and less over time.
All right, Warren, I'm not drawing any comparison to what actually happened, but I think about, like, Monica Lewinsky, for example. She was such a big part and was in the headlines for so long about what happened with her and Bill Clinton that she's never been able to have gainful employment since. You know, you can't necessarily just go be a PR person somewhere. You can't do it. Where does she go to next? Because to me, I guess I'm an integrity guy. I couldn't imagine if Omarosa walked in here tomorrow and said, I want a show on KPEL, as interesting as it would be, I would still say, absolutely not. Like, I'm not touching you because you bring so much along with you. So is this just kind of a grasping for straws, make the money while you can?
So if Monica Lewinsky came in here and wanted to be interviewed by you,
I'd interview her.
You'd run Bernie out and then you'd interview her.
No, I wouldn't. No, Bernie would actually ask the best questions, truthfully.
Yeah. First of all, a disclaimer is I never watched a single episode of The Apprentice or any of those other things. So I never heard of Omarosa until she quit, got fired, or whatever it was. And but I will say this, that I think that Trump is probably one of those who does like to have a few people around him who will talk back, you know, instead of just having a bunch of yes men and who won't say what they're really thinking. They just want to regurgitate what they think he wants to hear, which to me is the worst employee you can have, of somebody who's in a position of responsibility or whatever. You know, you want somebody as a sounding board. I think this person probably took that to the extreme. But the biggest thing about it is that if she was in a recording, you know, people go to prison for that, especially when you're in those secure areas like the White House. You know, virtually the whole working area of the White House is a secure area. Now you can't even get in there without, you know, special passes and all this, that, and other. And that for somebody to blatantly sit there and record anything, you know, that normally was in a violation of Espionage Act. And that it's, you know, that to me is the thing that the most blatant about it, and people are acting like, well, that's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm. Carol, you know, it's funny because Warren mentioned, you know, Trump maybe not wanting to have yes men around him. The other side of that coin, too, is when she's by herself somewhere, before this whole firing thing happened and she's kind of turns against him, she's defended him at all costs. So she's also someone who wasn't rattled necessarily by criticism, kind of in the same vein as Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who doesn't seem to be able to be rattled. She's just pretty prepared to say it's what the decision was.
Kind of in the same vein as Donald Trump.
She's backing off a little bit since they're going into arbitration, and she violated a confidentiality agreement, among other things, including the recording in the Situation Room, which there's a question about that as well. So I hope her book sells a lot, because she's not going to get any other jobs. No one is going to trust this woman. She's been all over the map. And by the way, if Trump were a racist, why did he give her 3 chances on The Apprentice when she was? I mean, I never watched The Apprentice either. But if you read any of the papers, you know, if you read any of the news about it, she was always the one that was causing problems for people, and nobody could figure out why he kept giving her chances. Then he gives her another chance to come into the White House. And if I were he, I would have made her ambassador to ISIS or something. I mean, really, this woman she's really an awful woman, just from what I've seen.
Yeah.
And you have just to think, just the comparison of what she's saying now, as opposed to what she said when she was hankering for a job in the White House. The woman is not to be trusted. So again, I say, if Trump were really a racist, I mean, his actions belie his stupid, inelegant, thoughtless words that he says on a regular occasion and gets himself into trouble. However, his actions belie those words. He has quite a number of women. They said he's against women. He has quite a number of women in really serious positions. Same thing with blacks in his White House. I mean, and in his circle. I mean, it does not. His actions belie all those charges.
The interesting part was, I think the reason with Omarosa, whenever she was on The Apprentice, that predated all the Real Housewives shows of people fighting and everything. She was that character on the show, which is, I think, why she came back so many times. She's a great TV character, but she's just not in real life, She
gets people irritated, and you either you make them sad, you get them emotionally involved in some kind of way. You either make them angry, you make them sad, you make them happy. In some kind of way they have to be emotionally invested. And she was one of those people who could get people really riled up.
You put a reality show president in the White House, you get reality show advisors.
I mean, look, it stays interesting. Warren, wrap this up for us.
Well, as I've said it before, that this is the biggest reality show in the world, and that it's the most serious. But I never watch reality shows. The Real Housewives, the NBA wives, the NFL.
Okay, something tells me you would be a fan of 90 Day Fiancé. It's all about people who get married for a green card.
I have no earthly idea about what that was. I didn't even watch things like Inside Chicken Ranch.
Oh gosh!
Well, let me tell you something. On the same, while all this is exploding, the IRS has been fined. Finally, the word came out. The IRS has been fined $3.5 million for targeting conservative groups. Now, they still will not release the depositions for Lois Lerner. So when you look at the comparison between the Obama White House and the Trump White House, you will never find out anything. I mean, it's like pulling teeth to get any information about what Obama was up to all those years, all the illegality he was up to.
Hey, that's
like
the modus operandi. Like we talk about Trump's done something dumb. We have another scandal. We have a scandal every other day in the White House, and we just go, but Clinton emails and Obama, like it's the same BS.
Look at what Obama actually did, as opposed to what they keep charging Trump with doing.
Yeah, and who pays the IRS fines? What I want to know.
Okay. Oh, who pays for it all?
Kiddo.
Oh, come on,
you and
taxpayers.
Me.
All right, hey, let's add this
else?
to next week's edition of Winging It Wednesday.
But that's quite an admission.
All right.
That is quite an admission.
Thanks, guys.
Them.
Carol Ross, Warren Connell, and Stafford Barnett. Hear the Ross Report this afternoon at 2 o'clock.
Indeed.
The earrings will come off, and it's not because she's going to fight. It's because her headphones have to fit.
Earrings are coming off.
All right, 7:58 now.